in life, in the arts, whether it's music or dance or anything, we're influenced by many, many things that take us from where we had that interest to where we are today. So maybe we can talk a little bit about your history. Angie, we can start with you and getting into music and what your background is in it that's taken you from getting involved with it from the beginning. And we're not talking every year by year, but just generally, what, how you got started, how you got an interest, what were your influences in terms of musicians or sounds or composers, and leading up to where you are today.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. So I don't know. I guess my first experience with realizing that I was into playing music was when I was in, I think, the 3rd grade, and there was a French choir that you could join, and I thought that was really cool because I was learning how to speak in French, and then I got to sing in French too. So, and then there was all the usual stuff like ukulele and recorder in elementary school, and all those things. I got really into them, and I think I was 8 or 9 years old when I asked my parents to get me some kind of organ or synthesizer so I could start taking organ lessons, because I really liked, I liked the big sound of the church organ, so I wanted to kind of try to replicate that at home. Then that turned into piano lessons, and then in the 7th grade, you go in, if you want to be in band, you go in and you get to try out instruments, and the band director handed me a saxophone. And I remember I think it was a tenor that she handed me, and I literally, she put the reed on and everything, and I went honk and made this terrible duck sound, like a strangled duck. And she's like, "Oh yeah, perfect, saxophone is you." And I was like, okay. So I was an overachiever, so I registered for a music camp that summer, knowing literally not even how to assemble the saxophone. I had to learn that on the first day. I was trying to hook the neck strap on where the gooseneck was, I was doing it all wrong. That was an intensive week, 8 hours a day of just working on your craft and learning music. I already knew how to read music and that kind of thing, so it was so then I started the 7th grade with this edge over everybody because I had spent the summer in this intensive workshop, and I really just started to live and breathe saxophone. I gave up my piano lessons. I focused on saxophone. After 3 years, my parents bought me a saxophone. I knew then I was going to study at university. I started playing in the university jazz band in the 10th grade with the man who was my saxophone teacher and would be my saxophone teacher for the whole time, so all the way through university. So then that was kind of my track. Once I started focusing on that, then everything I did was taking me towards getting that degree. Strangely enough, it was in classical music, so I was learning all of these classical composers. Classical is not really the right term, but because they were 20th century composers, but nevertheless, just so that you understand what I'm talking about, not jazz music. But my teacher was really into jazz, and so we also studied that kind of on the side of my actual curriculum. And I think honestly I have him to thank for what I say is a unique style that I have, which is not really like the jazz guys, where I'm just kind of rattling off a lot of scales and modes all day long, which is awesome, and those guys are great. But I'm more about tone and I don't know, space between the notes. I'm more about just really focusing on a beautiful melody and making the sound of the saxophone soar. It's not, so I don't like to call myself a jazz saxophonist. I don't really know what I am, but as far as influences go, I honestly don't on a regular basis listen to a lot of saxophones, which probably sounds really strange, but honestly, I guess when I was studying, it was Paul Desmond was my favorite jazz saxophonist. I really liked his soft tone and how he wasn't kind of aggressive like a lot of the other, especially the tenor players like John Coltrane, who is beautiful, but just has that sort of more aggressive tone, I guess. So influences, I grew up being a rock and roll head, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Megadeth and Iron Maiden.
Did your parents have an influence? Did they support?
Big time supported. I can remember my dad worked on Saturdays, and he would take his lunch break to drive my brother and I to our lessons. My brother took guitar lessons, and I took, at the time, piano lessons. And he would do that, go drop us off, go grab himself some junky fast food somewhere, eat it in the car, come back and pick us up and take us back home because my mom didn't drive. And yeah, so they were definitely very supportive. Like, I can also remember, this is a really good story, I was trying to get my two hands to work together on this piece. I could play the right hand, and I could play the left hand, and when I tried to put them together, I couldn't do it to the point where I wanted to pick something up and throw it through a window. Like, it was like, I was so frustrated, I was like crying tears of frustration. And my dad was standing behind me just like going, you can do it, just breathe and try it again. Just breathe and try it again. And it was like, I wanted to kill him, and I wanted to like smash the keyboard, but then I just kept trying it again. Of course, you know, I did get it eventually, but, and that really helped me a lot of times because playing the saxophone is one of those things that's easy to honk on a saxophone and make it sound, but to make it sound beautiful, you know, you really have to work hard. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, kind of. It's not just blowing. It's using your ear. It's adjusting the tension of your jaw. It's adjusting the position of your tongue in your mouth, and
the
amount of air that you're pushing out, and how much pressure you're putting on that air. So it's one of those things that can be very, very frustrating to learn because it can sound really terrible when it's not done well.